Hey there, Blazer fans, and welcome to episode 14 of The Dragon's Den, a podcast for those that bleed green and gold. Today I'm mixing it up a little bit. I don't have a former UAB athlete on, but instead I have one of UAB's many super fans, Mr. Dave West. One of my missions of this podcast from very early on was to give the fans a voice too, and Dave has a great voice in the Blazer fan base. Before I get into the episode, don't forget to stick around till the end and listen to my new segment, This Week in Blazer History. This is the second edition of that segment. All that's gathered by Mr. Steve Rutherford. But let's go ahead and get into the episode. Thanks for listening. All right, Blazer fans, I've got my guest for episode 14 here, a big UAB Blazer fan. Many of you know him through social media, and you've probably seen him at games, and he's been around for a while. Mr. Dave West. Dave, how you doing tonight?
Man, doing great. Been looking forward to coming on here. You've been putting together a great podcast. It's been a lot of fun listening to it. So feel psyched to be a part of it too.
Thank you very much. Going into your bio a little bit here, I kind of snooped around on your Facebook page and your social pages, but you're from Morris, Alabama, and you went to Mortimer Jordan High School. So what did you know about UAB before attending, and what made you choose UAB?
So I am from Morris, like you said. I lived there up until I was 18 years old, and then moved straight downtown. I didn't stay at UAB, but I stayed in some apartments nearby. Because my family's always had a business downtown Birmingham. So even when we lived in Morris, if you know the geographic area is probably 20 miles north of downtown, I was always coming and going in and out of downtown at our business over the summer when I was a kid, or even working part time later in high school. So I was very familiar with UAB because I've always been in downtown Birmingham. Well, of my three older sisters, the middle one went to UAB, was a Blazerette. That's kind of when I really got a taste of UAB athletics, because we'd always go watch her at football games and things like that. I don't believe at that time they did anything at basketball. I still don't think they do, but that's kind of how I got my taste of it. And then I went to UAB because working at family business, it was 3 blocks away. We were right there by Ted's restaurant, 3-4 blocks. So it just made a lot of sense. But I would say coming right into college is when kind of my UAB sports fandom kind of hit, which I graduated in high school in 2005. So you can imagine I came in like right in the heyday of like UAB basketball post Gene Bartow. It was that Mike Anderson era. And so I just, fell in love with it immediately. I fell in love with basketball primarily because football never really was, even though I went to swim the games, it really wasn't really my passion. I think at that time I claimed to be an Auburn fan, but don't quote me on that. And don't tell anybody that, but I have since gotten far from that. So anyways, long way to answer that question. I grew up in Morris, but I've been in downtown Birmingham since 2005. I live in Bluff Park now, but I've lived a lot of my life downtown. And UAB has just become, literally part of my life because my little circle is just encompassed by it for a very long time.
So you mentioned that you've been involved with sports for a while. And, you were involved with UAB athletics, not just as a fan, but you managed the Daily Dragon website for a while, and you did a lot of great coverage. But did you have an early interest in sports from an early age, like, playing, or did it kind of just develop with your sister being a Blazerette and, you being around UAB?
I was into football growing up, but I was one of those country towns where this is back before football was like really, really, really competitive in the Gardendale, Mortimer Jordan area. So basically anybody who wanted to play could play. And I guess that's still the case. But I never had any considerable playing time, and I wasn't very good. But I was around football because it was the only sport you didn't have to make the team on it. I wasn't good enough to make anything else. And so yeah, and then being in the South, you love football. So but the basketball thing, like I was mentioning earlier, that really it hit me right before I got into college. I vividly remember being down the beach watching that run in 2004, and I was hooked, and it's been like a drug ever since. And I've been through the highs and through the lows, but I love sports in general. I really do love all sports, but growing up, football was it primarily. And then once I got to UAB, that's when my real love for basketball kind of overshadowed everything, I guess you could say.
So, like I mentioned, you went to Mortimer Jordan High School. What was it like seeing Spencer Brown, who's a fellow alumnus at Mortimer Jordan? What was it like seeing him come to UAB and break the records, and he's now on his way to the pros?
It was really cool. The only other player that I can recall that has gone from Jordan to UAB and had any kind of playing time was Sam Kendrick. I don't know if you've ever heard of him, but he was a senior when I was a freshman. Just used to beat the crap out of me in practice. He was 6'7", defensive tackle, defensive end, um, so yeah, that was my experience. I remember him playing for UAB back then. We thought that was like the biggest thing in the world. We definitely never had any players like play for a big Division I team like Alabama or Auburn for the most part. And so anyway, later on, Warrior High School is where he actually, if he was like my age, he would have gone to that high school. And our high schools combined at about 2003, I think. So it was really cool to see like years later when Spencer, I remember watching some of his high school games and then hearing he was from Kimberly, Warrior area. And I was like, man, that guy would never even be at our high school if it wasn't for combining our schools. But I fell in love with that guy. Like I was on the early Spencer Brown train. Like I think I actually went to a handful of games, and like I didn't go to. I think I went to a corner game and one other game with some friends. And he played like literally like every snap. He was a defensive player. He was a running back. He was a workhorse. So when he got on the team and then actually became a legitimate high usage player and breakout star, it was amazing to connect that to my high school because I mean, like I said, him and Sam Kendrick are probably the only two players I can think of coming from Mortimer Jordan. I think some guys have been successful since then, but back in the days when I went to Jordan, it was not a big powerhouse like it has been from time to time.
So, like you said, you've been around UAB for a while now. You saw the run back in '04. You were at UAB in the late 2000s and everything. You've been around a lot of the teams, football, basketball, and the like. If you could bring back one former UAB athlete to come back to that team right now, who would it be and why?
I've been thinking about this question for a while now because you sent me the questions earlier. I think I would bring back Elijah Millsap, and because we only got him for a very brief amount of time, and I think he's in my like top five of the most talented players that ever passed through UAB, especially in the last 20 years. He was a big time player, and I would love to have him on a team like this. I mean, he was a lot like Tavin Logan the way he plays. A rim driver, a big body. And I remember back in the day reading ESPN articles where he'd be like the player of the week. I was like, oh man, from our school, like this is so cool. And he was my favorite, but he was cut. He may have gotten 2 seasons in before he left. I know for sure it was no more than two. And he was a transfer. That's what it was. And I think he may have left early. So he's definitely probably my favorite UAB basketball player of all time. And I would love to have him back on the team just to see what he could do with these guys.
Well, that's an interesting answer. I loved Elijah, but I didn't see that coming. But that's a great answer. I loved him, when he was around, and that was a special team that we had around that time. With AJ and a lot of those guys back then. So,
Mm-hmm.
like, I mean, I didn't see it coming, but that's a great answer.
Yeah. Yeah, I saw a lot of up close and personal games of his. My dad had some season tickets back then because he found some interest in it too when I was at UAB, and so I got some real close up games of him, and I just it was just awesome. Those were the years where we would beat a Power Five team, or whatever you want to call it in basketball. A couple times we had that NIT run, and he was he was awesome, man. He was like a man among boys. It was cool to see someone from my school be that good.
So you've you're a pretty well known UAB fan among the fan base and among other Conference USA fan bases. But in your time as a UAB fan, what have been some of your favorite games that you've attended as a Blazer fan?
I would say the number one game would have to be the North Carolina game, and I imagine that's probably this is. I'm going to go to basketball first because I am totally guilty that when I was in at UAB from '05 to '09, I maybe went to two football games. So basketball is a large sample size of my UAB experience. So I would say that North Carolina game that was like a fever dream. It almost just didn't feel real. I'm sure you were there. It felt like just it blew my mind. But I was also in the crowd in the green the game green section when the slap game, the Memphis player, when they came up into the stands. I was there for that. That was incredible. That was an era that I don't know if it can ever be replaced again as far as student turnout. Those two are definitely up there. But I would say one of the coolest experiences I've ever had to have at a UAB basketball game specifically is for the Daily Dragon. I somehow got credentials to that Hall of Fame tournament up in Kansas City, and so that's the game we played Kansas and Richmond, and so I had like all this media access, and I mean I'm just writing this like funny blog and like it was most of you remember what it was like, but I mean I'm going to these press conferences and Bill Self's passing me in the hallways, and I'm in this amazing like professional arena. I'm like, wow, how did I get here? And I cannot do anything bad, or because they see my credentials, they were like, what the hell is Daily Dragon? And they're gonna kick me out. But that was super rad. There are a few things that I can compare to a packed arena full of Kansas fans and doing the rock chalk like chant thing. It was, man, it's surreal. Those are some like salt of the earth, middle of the country, blue blood like basketball fans. They are rabid and wild. So yeah, those are probably my three favorite sports memories. And I think I mentioned the championship game in 15, 16 or whatever it was. That wasn't, I can't really call that a memory. The one that we wanted to be JCC, because as you saw in my image, I spent a lot of money on beer that game, and I sat up in the nosebleeds. And man, I was like just living the dream. I was by myself, which is kind of sad, but my friend canceled on me. So, but I had like no judgment zone, so I just felt like I could just have as many as I wanted. And but that was also a great experience from what I can remember.
Very nice. So, I imagine you'd probably want a few beers for my next question. What were some games or trips that you wish you could forget as a Blazer fan?
Man, I feel like I have seen the worst of them. I really do. I was at La Tech, the game. William Lee blocked the ball into the camera guy's face and it broke, and we lost that game. I was at countless Middle Tennessee games that I traveled up there, and we just got our butts waxed. Like I can't even tell you how many times that happened. Um, I think, oh gosh, I don't think any beats the Auburn game. I think it was the first time we played Auburn, or the second, maybe the first. It was in that new arena, and we lost by one
Yeah.
point. That was one of the first times where I realized, like, Dave, you might actually have a problem. Like, I was emotionally distraught. I wasn't angry because I'm not an angry fan. I don't yell and get mad at refs and stuff like that, but I get like really emotionally invested in a loss or a win. But I feel like the losses affect me way more than the wins. Because, and I mean, again, I'm sure you were probably at that game too, because we always see each other out games. That was just, it felt like that arena just closed in on us once they beat us,
Yep.
and like they just made us hurt all the way to our cars, and it was ah.
Funny story about from my perspective of that game. I somehow managed to get student section seats, and I was sitting behind the basket. Yes.
No.
So I wasn't sitting with the rowdy students, but I was sitting with the like sit on your hands and just enjoy the basketball game type students. And I was sitting
Yeah.
behind the basket where Coakley's shot got blocked, and as soon as it got blocked and that crowd went nuts, I couldn't hear I couldn't even hear my thoughts. I grabbed my coat and I walked down the steps, and I didn't even know where I was going. I just walked to the nearest exit, and I could have been walking in places I wasn't allowed, but I just made my way to the nearest exit of the arena, and I was ready to get out of there. So I can definitely see why you can want to forget that game.
My dude, I am famous for disappearing in the middle of games when we're like losing and I'm really upset. Most famously, when we were in that Niceville tournament, it was the first game, not the Virginia Tech game. It was the first game. I think I watched, and I had like great seats. I traveled all the way down to Florida. I think I watched maybe 15 minutes of that game. Who did we play? Like Illinois or somebody? Yeah, and we just like we were good. That was like I think one of our best like
It was the year after we
uh,
beat Iowa State.
yeah, exactly. So like everything just like, and like I invested in this trip, and I was like, man, we're gonna go down there and like we're gonna see Iowa State fans in this little arena, and I was like psyched. And dude, I was at my car literally before like the 10-minute mark, and I listened to it, and I think I like listened to David Crane like on the way back to the hotel, and I did not handle that one well at all. That one hurt badly. The next day was more fun because we should have beat Virginia Tech in that overtime game, but don't get me started on that. I felt like we had some bad moments, but anyway, so
Well, UAB has changed a lot since you attended school here, and you've seen a lot of changes firsthand being in Birmingham your entire life. What can you say about the current state of UAB athletics and the school as a whole?
well, I mean, you can just visually see it when you go to the campus. I mean, I don't think I can't hardly think of a single. Maybe the humanities building is maybe the only building that's still there that I went to frequently. The original business building, I guess it was Colot back then. Uh, None of those buildings are used, like they are now. It would be all these replacement buildings and like Heritage and the new business building. It's just incredible. I mean, this is what UAB, this is what the potential, this is what they saw in the potential of the biggest city in the state, and what it could, what kind of like real legitimate, not just a commuter school. This is what they had in mind. And Bill Clark is just so smart at parlaying the interest of sports with, also, well, not parlaying, but he blends well with like community support stuff. He makes it about Birmingham. It's not just about UAB. And that's what gets these fringe fans that, maybe an Alabama and Auburn fan, that's what gets them off the fence to start coming to our basketball games or football games, is finding a way for it not just to be like supporting UAB, but you're supporting Birmingham. And I know a lot of people, I mean, I love to give the man credit because I think he's, a god, but a lot of really smart people in that foundation just came up with a really good way of making UAB sports a Birmingham thing and not just a UAB thing. And that's what I think is really transform athletics for sure. But as far as like the school, I mean, the school just prints money. So I mean, the school's the way they're able to build things and expand. I mean, what more could you ask for? I feel like this is really like, other than like the early Gene Bartow basketball days where at the BJCC, I think this is probably, as a whole across the spectrum, the heyday of like UAB athletics. I think we're living it right now.
That's a great answer. Yeah, I'm very excited about the way the school is going, and I feel like it seems like every time I turn around, there's a new building popping up. So it's I feel like
Yeah.
we haven't even reached the tip of potential yet. So I'm very very excited. What do you think about the new stadium being built downtown?
It's incredible. From my office window, I can see the top of the two cranes. So, and they're always working. There's like they're little ants just walking around. It's going to take football to a completely different level. I mean, the words. I don't know. I mean, I don't know if you could. I could sit here and try to write for hours to try to put words to it, and you just can't. It's going to be a complete game changer. I think we're going to be like the next UCF type, Boise State type program. I think this is it. This city needed this. This city wanted this. We've talked about this stadium for so long, and how freaking fortunate are we that we're actually good when it finally became into fruition, or came into fruition. Like, could the planets line up any better? And I think if anyone deserves it, it's the legit UAB fans for something like this to finally go right at the right time and it work out. Like this like true fan base could not deserve this more. And I think this is really where they're going to start seeing. I mentioned like the fringe fans, the fans that may support one of these bigger schools around here. This is when we're really going to start getting them to have. I support two teams because I'm a Birmingham person. I got Birmingham pride. I think this stadium is going to get. It's just going to do. It's just going to blow minds. It's going to get so many people who may have been a little bit passive about UAB sports, and now they're really going to start believing in it.
I agree. I see you in pictures posted all the time on social media. You're all around Birmingham. What are some of your favorite things to do around the Magic City?
Yeah, I love Birmingham. I've been all over the country. I've been fortunate to do a lot of really fun things, vacations and stuff, and visit a lot of really cool places. But I mean, it's hard to beat Birmingham right now. The brewery scene, I think, is really where it hits. I think you can have such a unique afternoon in the city when the weather's nice. You can hit two or three of these breweries, and no traffic, and most people don't have to go very far to get there. I think the food and drink scene in this town is, I mean, I would stack it up there. I mean, I've recently gone to San Francisco. San Antonio, places where like are there's really a deep seated food community. I put Birmingham right up there with it. I mean, because I think that's our best form of entertainment in the city is food and drink. And I mean, I'm sure you've done it before too. Like, you can spend some really fun days just kind of popping around these cool little patios at breweries and checking out these great restaurants. That's why I think it's such a great sell for recruits. I mean, not that I'm telling these coaches to go take these 18-year-old kids drinking all day, but you know what I'm saying? Like, it's something to do. There's off time. And this city is really, you can get around a lot of places really quickly without a whole lot of fuss. And you can get some really good food. And I think, that's what I love about this city. So yeah, you'll usually catch me at, I don't go to too many of the late night places, but I have a couple haunts here in town. I'm a mom's basement, proponent. That's I think the best bar in Birmingham. And then other than that, I hit the brewery so I can watch sports. I mean, I can never watch too much sports.
And I know you're
I don't think.
I know you're a big soccer fan too. I've seen you. I've seen you with some. What professional team do you pull for? And I know you're a big supporter of the Birmingham Legion too.
Yeah, I'm a relatively new soccer guy. I would say I've been a men's national team fan for a long time, just because it's just kind of hard. It's like pulling like the Olympics. Like you just get inspired by it when it's your country. But it's professional. I just now recently, probably in the past 2 or 3 years, started watching EPL in the UK, England. I'm supposedly a Tottenham fan. That's who I like attach myself to, but they're not very good very often, and nobody told me that. I just like their name a lot. So that fandom I wouldn't say is anything close to what my UAB fandom is. But as you said, I love watching Legion, and I love watching the national team. But watching Legion's kind of like watching the Braves. It's like you can be a fan of the program and the team, but not the Braves, the Barons. But the personnel is always changing. Like it's so fluid. It's like I mean, like I love it, but like I'm not sad when we lose. But I mean, maybe if we were in the playoffs or something and we lost, and I was like at the game, I'd be sad. But yeah, soccer's definitely gotten up there for me because it's another one of those really great sports to watch with a group of people and like just have some beers and that want to be passionate about it. Man, it's up there with football and basketball for sure as far as having a good time watching it.
Nice. In this day of social media and people knowing pretty much everything about you, it seems like I know a lot about you through social media. And like you said, I've seen you at several games and everything. But what's something that people might not know about you, or maybe a common misconception people might have about you?
Man, I didn't realize how confused people were about who I was for so long because I thought what I did was really obvious. I had the Daily Dragons Twitter account and I got it all almost like I probably about 1,800 followers. And then when it went defunct, I just turned it into this like dumb parody account to where I could like say stupid stuff and be funny. And that has been by far way more fun than having to write write-ups about a game against the Alabama and A&M at 11 o'clock at night. That stuff was hard, man. It was hard grinding out those blog posts when we weren't getting any local coverage. But yeah, having this little parody Char Millionaire account, it's just I literally just say whatever I feel like saying, and sometimes it's funny. Sometimes I have to like delete it the next morning if I like curse like too much. I try to be like, cause I know there's a lot of olds that follow me, and I don't want to like run them off too much because I appreciate them. They're my homies. They're my old UAB heads. But for the most part, it's just poking fun with these other conference accounts and these other fans. I mean, it's just so easy. It's so easy to get some of them riled up. And you guys all see me sometimes. Sometimes I'll post like a thing that seems like this is really what I believe, and all I'm doing is just baiting these guys. And I'm just trying to see who I can make mad and see because it's fun, But I have a blast at it. But as far as to answer your question, what people may not know about me, well, yeah, I'm Dave West. I also have I'm God Save the Ham on there. But I didn't realize I only have 2 accounts. This is the truth. I have Char Millionaire and God Save the Ham. None of those other accounts are mine. I never ran the F5 Daily Dragon thing. It was never me. I've never created any burners because I don't really have to. Char Millionaire is the greatest burner of all time. He's literally a dragon burner. So that's pretty good,
Nice.
Actually. I'm gonna write that down. But yeah, I'm so easy to find. I've got nothing to hide. I'm not out there like talking to recruits and bad mouthing players and stuff. That's what gets you in trouble, man. You start doing that stuff, and you can make a lot of enemies and get yourself in trouble. So So yeah, anybody can find me online. I'm a very available person. I'm a dad. I'm 30. What am I? 34 years old. UAB alumnus. At the end of the day, I'm just crazy like the rest of you, man. I just want to see us win every single game. And I hate La Tech. That's something we can all share.
Nice.
It's not. They're terrible. They're terrible people. All
Well, I can agree. I
blame.
can agree with you there. But so you mentioned you've been on a lot of trips. What's your favorite game road trip that you've been on as a Blazer fan?
Man, I wish I would have went to the tournament game in 16. 20. Yeah, gosh, has it been that long? It's crazy. I backed out last minute and it didn't go, and I'm sad. So that's one that I know that I would have loved, but I also didn't think we were going to win, so I didn't want to like invest the time. I would say the best game that I've been to, actually football. I was at the Southern Miss game 2 or 3 years ago when they had Ito Smith and we beat them like 30 something to three. That was awesome, man. That's what like I really felt like we arrived. It's cold. We were Southern Miss fans. I mean, I give them a lot of credit. They're another one of those fan bases that's been around for a long time. Like they know their football down there, and we just went down there and kicked their butts, man. And it was the best ride home. Got myself some canes down the street, and then just man, it was dope. So yeah, anytime you're winning on the road and you actually make the trip, life's good.
So you mentioned life a little bit, but I see you're a newlywed, and how's life going, and how's everything going overall for you?
Well, we decided that 2020 couldn't be crazy enough with the pandemic, so we decided to do like every other life thing you could possibly need to do. We were going to get married in March, March 22nd, the week that everything fell apart. So we had to postpone our wedding. Got married in August. Got pregnant a month later. Well, if you did do the math, maybe not quite a month later. We don't really know there. It's kind of touch and go. And we bought a house. Being a newlywed is amazing. All right, we have a baby coming in 3 months, so life's good, man.
So how can my listeners engage with you?
As I mentioned before, I'm Charmillionaire. I'm not really sure how I spell that. I think there's some ones in there instead of L's,
Hmm.
so it's a little tricky to find me. So, or you can follow me on God Save the Ham, but that's just like me being like myself. Like, there's not anything really impressive there. But yeah, come connect with me at Charmillionaire, and we'll have a good time. I'm usually pretty funny, so sometimes.
So I'm gonna go to my social media question. You already answered one of my social media questions from Steve Rutherford at Memphis Blazer on Twitter. He asked how many versions of himself does he have on Twitter, and you've answered that with Charmillionaire and God Save the Ham, so that we know of.
And that's true. That I promise that is true. I don't run any other parody accounts. I don't have time. That's all. That's all I have.
My other social media question, and I don't know if you saw it today, but comes from Paul Ensign on Twitter. P Ensign, that's at PENSIGN on Twitter. He asks, if we win Conference USA, will you streak on the court like the guy did in the Super Bowl?
I would say because of the legal ramifications, I probably wouldn't do it now. But if you caught me 10 years ago, I absolutely would have. But I'm not going to say it's out of the question. I would say I'd be more willing to run on the court if we won an NCAA tournament game. That I think might be worth it. But I'd have to make sure my attorney says it's okay, because I can't. I got too much to lose these days. I can't be going to jail, So maybe Paul. Paul's a good guy, man. Paul's a good old head. So.
And I'm gonna do something a little different with you than I've done with anybody else. I always do a lighthearted question for my guests, but I'm gonna do rapid fire lighthearted questions, and you have to tell me the first answer that comes to your head. Don't really think about it for a long time. Okay, ready?
Okay.
All right, here
All
we
right,
go.
go.
Ready? All right. First question: if you had the power to eliminate one sport that you hate, what would it be?
Oh gosh, volleyball. Man,
Have any kind of pet.
well, I don't know why I said that. I like volleyball.
Have any kind of pet. What would you have?
A dog for sure. For sure.
Okay, that's a simple one, but okay. Go on a road trip.
Oh wait, you got something
It
exotic?
can be
Exotic?
anything.
Oh, I'd love to have a tiger, man. Tigers are rad. So
Go a little Joe Exotic here. Okay.
yeah.
Number three, go on a road trip with any celebrity, dead or alive. Who would you choose, and where would you go?
Oh, I would like to go with Kevin Hart. somewhere because I feel like he'd be a really good time and he'd get borderline like a little bit out of control and he knows everybody. So he seems like he'd be my kind of guy. We'd run the same speed and we're about the same height, so that's a good thing. I don't want somebody real handsome and too tall, so I want to be get some of the attention.
Would you rather be missing a finger or have an extra toe?
Extra toe, oh absolutely. Maybe I have an extra toe. You don't know that.
And last one, if you were an ice cream flavor, what would you be and why?
Rocky Road, a little bit of mix of everything, and that got that marshmallow squishiness in there. And I'm a little bit squishy too, so I would definitely be Rocky Road.
Well, I appreciate it, Dave. Thank you very much for your time. I loved the answers, and I'm glad my listeners are going to get to know you a little bit more. Even though it seems like we know you a lot through social media, but it's great to get to know you a little bit more. And thank you for your time.
Absolutely, man. Enjoy it. Keep doing great.
Big thank you to Dave for his time and letting us know a little bit more about him. If you haven't done so already, go find his Twitter pages and give him a follow. He's about as big a Blazer fan as they come, and you probably see him around on some game days too. Now I'm going to go ahead and get into my new segment, This Week in Blazer History, where I talk about stats and recaps of games from UAB athletics history. All of this gathered by another UAB superfan, Steve Rutherford. So the first item, before we look into a few special games that happened this week in Blazer history, let's highlight a few special accomplishments and milestones that happened this week. The top performance for this week goes to current coach Andy Kennedy. In a February 15th, 1989 game against Bradley, the Blazers lost 96-90, but Kennedy put on an offensive showcase. Kennedy scored 15 points in the first 5 minutes of the game, hitting his first 5 3-pointers. He finished the game with 27 points. This week in 1979, the Blazers' inaugural season, they registered their first overtime win in history with an 86-82 win at Hawaii on February 16, 1979. Statistically, it was a strange game. UAB hit 73% of their shots in the first half and led 47-22 at half. In the second half, the Blazers couldn't hit anything and did not score a field goal until there was 8:30 left in the game. Meanwhile, they went to the line 34 times in the second half and hit 25 free throws. In the second half, the Blazers had 25 points from the line and 2 points from the field. Hawaii's hack-a-Blazer strategy worked and they got the game to overtime. However, UAB held on to win 86-82. Also this week in 1987, Oliver Robinson became the first UAB player to have his jersey retired in a game against Western Kentucky. Finally, this was a big week in 1989 for UAB. In addition to 3 home games, including Auburn, Coach Gene Bartow was inducted into the Alabama Sports Hall of Fame, and the Alabama legislature passed a resolution urging UAB to initiate a varsity college football program. Now on to the featured games. UAB at VCU, February 20th, 1982. This week in 1982, UAB traveled to Virginia for an important Sun Belt game against VCU. As the conference race wound down, UAB was 7-1, and VCU was a game behind UAB at 6-2. VCU held the tiebreaker, so the winner of this game would win the regular season title. Blazers went 0-4 against VCU on the road. Oliver Robinson scored 15 first-half points and hit the first 8 points for UAB in the second half. Blazers led by 11 early in the second half, but VCU came back, hitting 8 straight baskets. Robinson had been unable to score during the VCU comeback, but he hit a 25-foot jumper while double-teamed with 5 seconds left to go in the game, and UAB won 56-55. The Blazers clinched their first ever outright Sun Belt regular season championship. When they returned home, more than 250 celebrating fans, including Birmingham Mayor Richard Arrington, met them at the airport. UAB Cincinnati, February 18th, 2004. Another big game that occurred this week was when UAB hosted 17th ranked Cincinnati at Bartow Arena. The trip was Bob Huggins' last trip to Bartow Arena, a place where he had not enjoyed much success. Despite his team dominating the Great Midwest and the early years of Conference USA, Huggins was 3-5 at Bartow Arena. For this game in 2004, both teams entered the game 8-2 in Conference USA. A record crowd of 9,312 fans were on hand for the showdown, the first sellout in Bartow Arena since 2000 when Huggins brought number 1 ranked Cincinnati team to Bartow. Cincinnati opened the game 8-0 as UAB started cold, but the Blazers went on a 20-5 run in the first half. With 55 seconds left to go in the half, Donnell Taylor hit a 3-pointer, and the Blazers led 43-27 at half. In the second half, although Cincinnati cut the lead to 7 with 6:40 to go, UAB held on to their lead by making free throws, hitting 18 of 23 in the final 11 minutes of the game. Demario Edens was 9 of 10 from the line in the second half. UAB's relentless defense forced 21 turnovers, and the Blazers upset the Bearcats 80 to 69. Coach Anderson praised Squeaky Johnson for the win, even though he did not score in the game. Squeaky had 5 assists, 4 steals, and drew several charges. This is one that we all know pretty infamously. UAB Memphis, February 16th of 2008. The game that made national news, the game that put Pierre Niles and the orange jumpsuit guy on the map. The heartbreaker of a game where UAB was oh so close to upsetting the number one team in the country. Even if nothing happened after the final horn, it was a memorable game for the ages. John Calipari brought his number one ranked Memphis Tigers to play in front of 9,392 fans, the largest crowd to ever witness a game in the arena, named for the coach who put both schools on the basketball map. John Calipari said, "I've coached a lot of basketball games in my career, and this environment ranked right up there with some of the great road venues. I just haven't coached in many environments like this where the energy in the entire game was unbelievable." The Blazers jumped out to an 11-point lead, 27 to 16, with 7:52 left to go in the first half, but the Tigers stormed back and trailed by 2 at halftime. In the second half, the lead changed hands several times, and Memphis built a 62-56 lead with 11:58 to go. UAB outscored Memphis 7-2 and took the lead 65-64 on 2 Robert Vaden free throws with 8:59 to go. The Tigers then missed 9 consecutive shots, and UAB pushed their lead to 77-70 with 2:29 left to go in the game. It seemed to the Blazer fans that momentum was building in the Blazers' favor, and many fans began anticipating the victory over the number one team in the country. Memphis hit a three-pointer and cut the lead to 77-73 with 1:22 left to go in the game. The Blazers missed on the next possession, and Memphis hit another three to cut the lead with 38 seconds to go. Robert Vaden was fouled with 15 seconds to go and hit one of the 2 free throws. With 6.5 seconds to go, Memphis player Chris Douglas Roberts tied the game, hitting an 8-footer over Robert Vaden. Vaden was called for a foul on the play, which over 9,000 fans in attendance loudly disagreed. Vaden stated that he felt Douglas had traveled and there was no foul. Memphis had hit 3 of 15 free throws over the past 8 minutes of the game, but Chris Douglas Roberts nailed the free throw and Memphis was up 79-78. Blazers had one chance with 6.5 seconds to go. Robert Vaden let fly an off-balance three-point shot while he was double-teamed. He missed, but Lawrence Kennard grabbed the long rebound and scored the basket as the horn sounded. Many of the fans thought UAB had won and pandemonium broke out. However, officials waved off the basket, reviewing the monitor, and declared that Kennard's shot was after the horn had sounded. Even though the action on the court was done, it wasn't over in the stands. Thinking Kennard's basket was good, some of the students stormed the court. Celebrating UAB fans were met on the court by celebrating and taunting Memphis players. Memphis coaches tried to corral their players into the locker room. As the Tiger players headed into the tunnel, they were showered with shakers, cups, and ice, and verbal abuse, as the students showed their displeasure at the officials and the Tigers' taunting. Tiger player Pierre Niles took offense and slapped one fan as he was leaving. It's a shame that such a great game ended as it did. It was a gutsy performance by Robert Vaden, who had 27 points despite a groin injury and was overshadowed by a confrontation and debris thrown at the visiting team. Conference USA reportedly investigated the incident, but decided not to take any action. A game that had plenty of drama, intensity, and wonderful performances came down to 2 free throws by 2 great players. One made by Chris Douglas Roberts and one missed by Robert Vaden. In the end, the Blazers had missed their chance for a signature win and a loss that most likely cost them a trip to the NCAA tournament. And finally, UAB at SMU, February 15th, 2012. A game that was played so badly, SB Nation was quoted as saying, "It's been a good ride, but college basketball died on Wednesday night. The full cause of death has not yet been released, but one can surmise the game died due to some form of blunt force trauma, perhaps caused by balls deflecting off the rim. The prime suspects at this time are SMU and UAB, with the former playing the bigger role in the case." If you missed it, UAB beat SMU by a score of 47-28. This was the final score. not a halftime score. It was as bad as you can imagine. On February 15th, 2012, UAB traveled to SMU and many bad records were broken. Blazers held SMU to 28 points, the lowest scoring output ever by a Conference USA team. Interestingly enough, the record broken was held by UAB themselves when they lost 50 to 36 to Southern Miss in 2002. This was a record UAB was glad to surrender. 28 points was the second lowest score for SMU in the shot clock era and the second lowest ever. UAB held SMU to 12 first half points, another record low for SMU. They shot 17.4% from the field, making only 8 field goals in the game in 46 tries. UAB only shot 34% from the field and 50% from the free throw line, but looked like an offensive juggernaut compared to their opponent. The Blazers were led by Casey Whitaker with 17 points and Cameron Moore, who had 12 points and 11 rebounds. However, as they say, an ugly win is still a win. That's going to do it for episode 14 of The Dragon's Den. I hope you enjoyed it. Be sure to follow me on social media at Dragon's Den EFEL on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram for guest announcements and the latest in UAB athletics news. Good night, and go Blazers.